If you've ever been out riding and just looked down at your shadow and thought you looked cool, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Like, that's kind of why motorcyclists like to go into large cities that have like the big mirror-like windows and ride by and look at themselves. I mean, if you love riding and then you see another guy on a bike and then you're like, oh, that's me. What's up, y'all? So today, I'm going to talk about something that I've been struggling with for a while, and a rather big band has recently come out and looks like they're having some problems themselves. So Linkin Park got a new vocalist. Let's talk about it. So as most of you guys know, since around COVID time, I've been looking for a new singer, or vocalist to work with specifically. I had started writing a couple of different types of songs, different genres, and I went on a search to look for vocalists. And I found a lot of people, a lot of sweet people, but unfortunately a lot of people that didn't know how to actually be in a band. And finding people that know how to be in a band is kind of hard. There's a lot of people that sing and they're able to do like karaoke, you know, when you're singing to a set song in that key and you think you're good, but it's really like you're drunk and you're having fun. It's a different thing when you're working in a band. But the other problem is sometimes you've been in a band, you sang, but you've only done cover bands. So essentially it's just live band karaoke, you know. Or what they, back in the 90s, there was a thing called Warped Tour, and they would have punk rock karaoke. Essentially, different members of punk bands that knew how to play different punk songs would get together and invite people in the crowd up to sing the songs, and they would act as their backing band. It was punk rock karaoke. I don't think that's a thing anymore. Actually, kind of is. They do emo nights with like full bands now. Actually, here in Texas, there's a famous metalcore band named Go Sleeper. They made a country band where they do 90s country covers, and they also mix in some emo covers. They do country style, which is interesting. And a fun show. I think they're better as a metalcore band. They're good with what they do country-wise, if that's like their thing. And I like country. I also kind of think they're better at doing metal. But I digress. I've been looking for a singer for a while, and it's hard. And you meet people and you try to work with them. Some people, honestly, I think sometimes people get intimidated. Like, they say they want to do something, and then typically I'll meet them and I start showing them a lot of my back catalog and a lot of the things I've done, and I feel like they get scared. I had one guy last year, I talked about briefly in a video, but I had one guy last year come out, and he sang great. I really dug him. He'd never sang before, a young guy. All he'd done is he had sang in his church once, and he did a high school talent show, and that was about the extent of him actually singing in front of people. He'd never really done it. He sang around his girlfriend, his mom, his family, but never in front of anybody else. And I brought him out, had him in the studio, sat him down, played. I asked him to tell me 4 songs. I learned them. And then we would, I'd audition him live by playing those songs. And I did. And he sang great, amazing. But honestly, when he came out, he looked like it was just overwhelming to see, the amount of equipment I had. I started showing him a lot of the different things I could do and the things I had done. And explained to him, my goals, what I wanted to do, what I wanted a singer to do, you know, but I'm willing to work here and there to get things working. You know, you got to have some leeway with what you're doing. But I explained it to him. We sat down, we talked, it was great. And then he ghosted me. And it was unfortunate because, like, guy had a lot of talent. And I feel like that's like a thing. It is scary to get into something when you don't know and you feel like, well, that guy knows a lot more than I know. Maybe he's let him do it. I'm not that good. And I feel like that a lot too. I see plenty of guitar players that are way better than me. And then I remember that, like, well, it's one thing to be able to, like, play in front of a camera. It's a whole nother thing to be able to, like, play on stage live and with the band and feel it out and be able to groove and vibe and be entertaining on stage and not just be a drone. There's a band that I played shows with before, and I get musically it's like super technical to play, and that's the draw. And then it just wasn't as entertaining. They just stand there and they're like not into it. I think it seems like it's not interesting to them, or they're not into it because it's so technically challenging that they're like hyper focused on being able to play it correctly live. And then part of the other problem is they also play like to a laptop, so they've got a click in their ear. If anybody's off for like a second, there's no room for recovery because the song continues on. And I'm personally not a fan of like that. I understand the pros and cons of using in-ears and playing like that, but that's not my thing. I kind of like being on stage, hearing everybody and just kind of guiding. I mean, if you're following the drums and the drummer knows what he's doing, you're going to be okay. That goes for everybody. But I've had my struggles finding a singer. And I still have that. I'm still looking and I'm still auditioning people. I've started working with a couple of people lately. I've been doing the video, but I haven't brought them on or explained anything. And a couple of them ride motorcycles. So, I mean, there might be some future motorcycle content that is music related. That might come if this takes off, which is, I'm a little excited about that, I ain't gonna lie. But anyway, Linkin Park got a new singer, Emily Armstrong. Now, if you're not familiar with who Emily Armstrong is, she was previously the singer of a band called Dead Sarah. Dead Sarah was kind of this hybrid of rock and punk, where it was like the riffs weren't too exciting. I think their biggest single that they had that was kind of a hit was The Weatherman, and that kind of put them on the map. It was on the radio for a brief time, but it was on the radio when the radio was already kind of dying. Like, people really didn't listen to the radio anymore. I don't remember what year, but I remember going to Warped Tour and seeing them at Warped Tour, and they weren't bad. And back then there weren't a lot of chick bands, much less a lot of chick bands or female-fronted bands that were on Warped Tour. That was also rare. And they seemed like they were a great hang. Some of my friends that were on Warped Tour liked them a lot, talked about how cool they were, and they enjoyed hanging out with them. But ultimately, I think that band just kind of fizzled out. I never heard from them again after that Warped Tour. Like, I never heard them doing more shows or more albums. There was also a female guitarist, and I feel like sometimes people, when they play guitar and write songs, they compensate with, it's going to sound funny, they compensate with pedals for lack of writing ability. And there's pros and cons to that. I sometimes do that too, but I don't sacrifice the song. I write the song and then figure out where a pedal is going to come in handy in order to help the song. I feel like sometimes some people go, oh, I've got a fuzz pedal and it made me want to, you know, be fuzzed out, like heavy and full sounding, and I'm just going to do this whole song on this fuzz based off like this one generic riff. And that's cool and it's fun. The only way that it gets interesting is when something else is musically interesting in the song, because that one's not going to be there. And that's kind of how I felt about The Weatherman. The musically interesting part was you had a raspy, like blues, yelly voice, female voice, screaming and singing. And her screams weren't like, I wouldn't say they were like good. If you're used to listening to heavier music that's like metalcore, hardcore, post-hardcore, there are amazing vocalists that can sing and scream. You don't have to like who they are, but their screams and their sings back and forth are good. One of my favorite bands is Every Time I Die. The singer of that band, Keith Buckley, He's really good at singing and screaming. He can't do it live, but on an album, it sounds great. He was always kind of, his voice was kind of shot live, but you also got to kind of forgive him for the fact that, I mean, they toured like 300 days a year for 20 years. His voice is going to be shot constantly. He's going to rest for a month before recording an album so that it'll be at its peak, and then it's going to go out and get shot again. That, and he also smoked cigarettes, and then he was like a alcoholic, and then I guess he was a recovering alcoholic that took up smoking cigarettes again because he just enjoyed it or something, and I don't know that whole backstory. There's fandom and stuff, and people nerd out over, and I was never the nerd out person. I just enjoyed their music. But there are plenty of people, if you search them out, there are people that are really good at doing the screaming and the singing back and forth. There's even females that are really good at doing it. There's a band called Ginger, if you've never heard of Ginger. Really talented. I believe the singer is a female from Ukraine. Really talented. They're more metal, but I mean, it's there. There's a famous band called I Wrestled a Bear Once. Singer screamed and she singed. Right now, there's another band called Spirit Box that's out. Spirit Box is huge. It's a female singer. She sings and screams. There's plenty of examples of this. I think the reason that this was kind of a bigger thing at the time when they came out is because for normies that don't, you know, the normies listen to the radio still, and, you know, they're on Facebook and they're getting told by Facebook ads like what to like and listen. They're going to push something like that because it was friendly and family friendly, and it was on, you know, it's on a major label that's backing it and trying to really push it because they know that there's a market for screaming music. But the market for the screaming music really came about from all the people that were doing it back in the 2000s, early 2000s, and couldn't get on a major label at the time. So instead of being able to get on the major label, they made their own labels or made small labels or just started touring all together on their own in order to get a following. And that they just kept at it for 10, 20 years. Eventually became and got that big enough because they got that following. A good example of that would be a band I love, All That Remains. Phil Labonte started that band. He originally started in the Massachusetts scene with Killswitch Engage, and after he got out of the Marine Corps, he wanted to go back to trying to do metal and scream and sing. And he played guitar, but he wasn't a shredder. But he wanted to play guitar and he could play a little bit of metal, so he started kind of writing songs a little bit. And then he found a better guitarist to come in and take over, and it really took off when he started perfecting his screaming and his singing. And he combined the aspects of metal and hardcore, so hardcore breakdowns with metal, you know, riffs musically for the verses and stuff, but it had hooks and choruses, and that was the melodic side of it, which became melodic metalcore. And he's one of the pioneers at doing it. So Linkin Park got Emily Armstrong, so it makes sense. She was on a major label. It probably was more convenient for her to try to come over. I need to look into it, but I think they were on the same label. I could be wrong. But it was more convenient to get somebody from the same label. They're already under a contract for an album, and they can rework the contract to make sure that she's going to be the one that can fulfill the contract, especially for Linkin Park. They probably got a lot of money if they would put out another album. Because irregardless of people online talking about it being good or bad, they're going to get press. They're ubiquitous in the mainstream the way Rage Against the Machine is. They are going to get press, and it's going to be live streamed on cable, live streamed on the internet. It already went live stream. Apparently a live stream already happened. That's how I know about all this. I didn't watch it. I think they released a single as well. I have not watched that either. But the fact that she was already somewhat in that world, it makes sense. They're not going to find Joe Schmo doing Linkin Park covers on TikTok or something. Not that type. Especially, you got to also realize Mike Shinobi? Obi-Wan Shinobi? Something like that. He's an older dude. Like, they started in the 90s as a band called Hybrid Theory. He's not, like, just on his phone on the internet all the time watching TikTok. If you've seen that guy, like, the things that he really does, he's actually running a studio where he records and works with other artists. He does what I do. And in doing that, he's not sitting around on his phone. Like, you can get a hold of me through things like Twitter and Instagram, but I'm not typically just sitting around on there. Honestly, I forget to post on Instagram the most. I'll take pictures and then completely forget about, oh man, I need to post that, and then tie it to something. And then with Twitter, I just kind of put my random thoughts on there. Honestly, my wife will alert me to something that I can comment on, and I'll make a comment at that point. Or I just share food or thoughts about other things. It's not usually music related, because there's not a lot of people on there that actually talk about music. And the world of people that try to do music on Twitter, for whatever reason, are like hip-hop and rap artists that I just don't have a lot in common with. They're making beats and loops, and I don't enjoy beats or loops like that. I don't want to say I despise it, but it's like, I don't see the purpose in it. I don't think it makes a good song. I think a song is made by the musical structure being unique and different. And a lot of times these beats and loops are very like, I mean, it's 4/4, it's 3/4, it's predictable. Or it's just somebody that made like, you know, 3 notes, ran it through reverb, and then put a bunch of stuff on it that like they're playing with it with filters and plugins. And I don't do that either. I play real instruments, so it's just not my thing. But with the Emily Armstrong thing, I've seen people comment. Mind you, I have not heard the song, and I did not watch the live stream. But I've seen people comment about how they don't like her voice. It sounds like she's trying too hard. I don't think that was the major problem. I think the major problem they're having with her that I've seen is she defended a man accused of rape, and she went to the trial and tried to intimidate the women that were at the trial against him. And that man was Danny Masterson. He was infamously known for that 70s show. He was the guy with the fro. Apparently, he did bad things. Went to prison for it too. She was infamously one of those people, and the reason that she was there is because she's a Scientologist. And the story behind the Scientology thing is that people in Scientology defend each other ferociously when they're attacked. They're like a pack of dogs or wolves. They gang together, and they don't allow somebody to like attack one of them. They have to help defend each other. That's at least the story. I know nothing about that. Raised Catholic. I know about Christianity, a little bit about Judaism, a little bit about Islam, and a little bit about Sikhism. I know nothing about Scientology. But all these things have been corroborated by the singer of the Mars Volta. His wife was one of the people in the court case against Danny Masterson. Because of that, he actually accompanied his wife to every one of the court hearings. So he has experience firsthand of what happened. And he was obviously angry. He went and posted about it. And that goes to what I've been going through too, trying to vet people. I had a singer that I actually started working with quite a lot. We were working forward, recording. I had songs kind of written out. He would come out, we'd record. Beside the fact that I didn't like that he would party and kind of drink a lot, he didn't really like work a lot. It was forcing me to do more work than he was doing. But besides that, the thing was, I didn't vet him completely before trying to bring him in, and he was already trying to announce that he was a singer. We were doing a thing, and unfortunately it didn't work because he got really super political and just started attacking everybody online, everywhere, all the time. And mind you, this was 2020 on, so things were hyper political from 2020, I mean, to now. It's not even done. It's an election year. It's still hyper political. And I just was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to, like, I'm going to distance myself from this guy. He's not going to work. And I told him, and we had multiple talks, and it was almost like, I guess he's never been rejected, because he's a decent singer. But he needed to stay sober and actually work. And he wasn't working. He was just drinking and then relying on his talent. But if you can't write and you don't dedicate time to writing, you just want to party, you're also not getting anything done.
Later, in the void.
I guess my point of view of the Linkin Park debacle is that they should have vetted for their singer a little bit more. And I'm sure it might seem like it's been years and they vetted them for years or something like that, but in reality, they were all probably busy doing different things. Life had moved on, and somehow somebody got in contact, thought it was a good idea to have this person in. Things happened organically in one way or the other. It could even be an A&R rep, for all we know. And they felt like it was something they could do, and they put it together rather quickly. When moving parts on a big thing start moving, it's hard to get off that train. And not a lot of people ever want to say no. And if you're not the head guy, like, you know, one of the leading people of that group, to say no, you can feel like you're the you know, the auxiliary player or the ancillary player, then you're probably going to get removed or fired. Or they'll be like, well, we can do this without you. And as far as I know, I think the drummer or somebody is actually not in the band. They have a new drummer. And I think the guitarist is like a recording guitarist, not a touring guitarist. Something like that. You can check me in the comments and tell me I'm right or wrong, but pretty sure it's something like that. So all that means is Linkin Park is literally only the bassist and the guy that rapped and played piano and a little bit of guitar. They're the only original members. They're just doing it under the Linkin Park moniker because it's going to make money, not necessarily because it's Linkin Park anymore. And that's fine, but maybe you should have done a new band name. It came out that way. But obviously, if you do a new band name, you're doing a new band, and it's harder to get the following from one thing to move over when all people really want to care about is Linkin Park. Now, you could do Linkin Park covers in the new band, but in the long run, people won't follow you over to something new. It's just proven results in business. You change your business name, you restructure, and usually people don't follow that you used to be something and then you became another thing. Until you've done the new thing big enough and long enough that it sustained and became its own thing. Linkin Park probably should have gone down that route. I guess we'll see in the coming months what's going to happen with this new singer. People don't like her, people like her, they're going to be called sexist, all sorts of stuff. That doesn't matter. You cannot like somebody for the way they sound musically in a band. It's not sexist or anything to think that. There are better people out there to do vocals in different positions. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Dad advice. Since we're talking about the topic of vetting people, I look at the Linkin Park scenario a lot like it's an interpersonal relationship that wasn't vetted. And the number one thing that people usually don't vet is not just their interpersonal relationships, but their dating life. You need to vet the people you're working with or you're doing things with, and you need to vet the people that you're seriously trying to date. Because if you're dating with a purpose, then you're vetting to see if you have similar goals, similar, paths that you want, that you can see yourself doing things, not necessarily the same with down the line, but when you do these paths, they can intermingle and twine, and you don't have to have the same thing in common with them, but you have to have something where you can be like, there's something you're getting out of it. So I think the main thing that I normally see people do is they get excited and caught up in the fresh, new, what do they call that when you first get married? The honeymoon. Everybody gets excited on the honeymoon era. But you should be genuinely excited about the person entirely. Because if you're not, and you're already trying to find something wrong with them or bad with them, one, that could be something wrong with you. That's your mindset. But two, that means that you aren't thrilled about them, and you're ultimately just going to find other flaws in that human because they are human and because you're human. You're not excited about them. You don't work with potential. And what Linkin Park probably did is Linkin Park saw potential and just said, let's shoot this gun and get it going, and it probably was premature. And she might do really well. I'll try to listen to the songs. I'll probably post about it on Twitter. I know they got a single. I don't know if it's an album. I'm sure there's an album. It's coming out later. They've already made their decisions. But I'll listen to the single and I'll probably post about it on Twitter. Maybe do a follow-up on my next video for a brief second. Let you guys know what I think about the song. I'm not a fan of Linkin Park. I never was. So I'm not like a hater. I don't really hate them. Their music just was not for me. It was very pushed on the mainstream. At the time when that came out, the screaming thing, I was already into like pretty heavy bands that screamed, and some of them screamed and sing, and it was really good. So Linkin Park wasn't like special or exciting to me, and musically it was not exciting. That's just my personal preference. But I'll check it out and I'll put it in the comments. But the point is, if you vet the people that you're interested in dating, or you vet the people you want to work with, think of it in like my position in being in a band. I want to vet the people I work with because ultimately it reflects on me, the things and choices they do in their life. And to some extent, it's kind of like a job interview. You don't want to get the guy that's been fired for sexual harassment. You don't want to get the chick that's been fired for stealing constantly. Those aren't people that you want to work with. So you want to vet them to an extent. And a lot of times, a good thing, this goes for interpersonal relationships, band relationships, or even just romantic relationships. You vet them not based on their looks or based on things they say, but based on their actual actions, proven actions they've done, and also base your idea of who they are and what they are about on their ethics and morals. If you get their ethics and morals down, you can work around other things. But if their ethics and morals are off from your personal ethics and morals, you're gonna find problems that you can't resolve. So that's all for this one, guys. If you stuck around long enough and you haven't subscribed or you haven't liked, go ahead and hit that button, click the notification bell, leave me a comment. Tell me I'm wrong. I could be wrong. I'm not a Linkin Park fan, so it's a non-biased opinion. But tell me I'm wrong. Or tell me to change my mind. Tell me something you like about them that I don't even realize and I don't know. Let me know. And remember, guys, pull hard, play hard,